For our sponsors and the NBC television stations, thank you all for being here, and thank you all for being here. We'll be right back. Harlan Ellison, my first guest tonight, is the author of a new book which is called Shatterday. It's a little play on words, which he'll explain later on, that came about after he appeared on a radio trying to write a script for a reading here in New York some time ago. He just looked out at the house and he said, "Oh my God, it's usually you and me alone, so be careful tonight. Would you all please welcome my friend, Mr. Harlan Ellison." Harlan? Now, there are a lot of people that we're going to talk about that I don't necessarily want to have back here as guests under the Fairness Doctrine provision at some time in the future.
I will not mention them.
All right. What did you think of the election? We've talked politics here many times in the past, and we just had an election, all finished now. What are your observations on what happened?
Well, if I mention the president-elect by name, will he want equal time?
We would like to have him here.
Okay. Well, then, Uncle Ronnie was our governor in California for 8 years and single-handedly destroyed the educational system of the state. Apart from that, he was terrific.
Now, why do you say that he destroyed the educational system of the state?
Well,
the University of California is still operating.
Still operating.
Los Angeles,
Barely.
Irvine, Santa Barbara, all right. The public school system is still in operation in California, possibly not as good an educational system as it should be, but name one school. Wherever you move in this country, people say the public schools are no good here. I don't care if it's Ashtabula, Ohio, New York, Los Angeles, or Miami. Everywhere you move, they say public schools here, no good.
Yeah, but they were good in California. We were number one in the nation when Ronald Reagan came into office. When he left, we were something like something between 18 and 22. I can't remember exactly what the number was. He put in a very repressive. He was on the board of supervisors, whatever they call them, for the state schools.
The Board of Regents.
Board of Regents, that's right. And he cut out a lot of things that were very important. And his response to the free speech movement, which is what started all of the campus unrest, was to call out the troops. Most people forget that how that started was that Mario Savio had a poem.
That's right. He had a poem.
Stanford, Berkeley, whichever school it was. Berkeley, and it was a four-letter word in the poem. And I know people get bent out of shape at words, but a word is simply a word. That's all it is. And I suppose the more you use words, the more defanged they become, and the easier they are to handle. But they censored the magazine, and the students rose up as students have since the dawn of time at universities to say, this is our poetry magazine, this is our journalism magazine, we're allowed to do what we wish to, and it escalated from there. They went on a strike. And instead of handling it at that level, Mr. Reagan called in the troops. And it was the first big riot on the college campuses, and it escalated from there. Now, I'm not saying that the times were not right for that kind of thing. What I'm saying is that a man whose instant and immediate response to something like that is calling the National Guard is a man who distresses me. And I personally, I have ambivalent feelings.
Except give me another response when you're in a situation.
Who took my Perrier? Oh, is that?
I think it's right there. Why do you drink that stuff?
It tastes good.
Well, it doesn't taste as good as New York City tap water. They had a survey in the magazine here. New York tap water is better than that stuff. You pay $2.75 a glass for that in a restaurant, and then you come on here and decry the fate of poor people in this country.
What did I say about poor people?
Well, in the past you have. You've talked about
I have decried poor people?
No, you've decried the fate of poor people. You know, and
I have a plan for getting rid of poor people, for taking care of it. It's called the Ellison Inverse Tax Program, where we remove all taxes from the incredibly rich and put it all on the poor and tax them out of existence. Therefore, they vanish and are gone, and we don't have to worry about it. Anyhow, I like the taste of it. What do you want from me? I like Perrier. Don't hock me. Don't start on me with the water.
Well, I don't like people who drink that stuff. I think I don't like people.
That is the most incredible snobbery I've ever heard in my life.
Well, it's not. Listen, we all sit here and we talk about helping our country become better, and you write about this in many of your pieces, and you talk about it a great deal in your lectures.
How does Perrier
Every time you buy a bottle of that stuff, my friend, you're shipping our money over to France. I mean, they hawk us on wine, they hawk us on art, they hawk us on food, and now you're going to help them hawk us on water. And I mean that.
I will not feel guilt about drinking Perrier. I'm sorry. I wish I could, but unfortunately I cannot.
Nor should you.
I drink Canada Dry. It's nice too. But I'm not going to drink New York tap water. I'm sorry. I've seen what's swimming around in the East River. No, I'm sorry. They can't convince me that it's coming out of the tap clean.
Yeah, but it still lives in the East River. That's what you got to remember. See, nothing dies, and the fish are still living out there. All those creatures.
Those are not fish. Have you seen what those things are?
Well, there are some things in there that have been thrown in there.
Not cute. I mean, people dump bodies in there all the time.
Yes, I know they do.
Nasty.
But they're well dressed. Beautiful cement life jacket. Terrific. Fantastic.
Can we get back to
not so much to Ronald Reagan. I want to get back to the thing that you talked about in talking about Reagan, words, how words drive people crazy. Barry Commoner ran a little notice campaign for president this year that became very noticeable when he used the word for bull excrement on the air, in radio and television commercials. Few people know this. Broadcasting companies cannot censor in any way a paid political candidate. If he wants to come on and say anything he wants to say, four-letter words, you can't stop him from doing it. So Commoner says, be on the air, and everybody went crazy trying to shut him up. You see, so it's not just Ronald Reagan or the Board of Regents or conservatives who go crazy about words. Nearly everybody goes crazy about words.
I've run into
They're
that.
afraid of words.
100 times. I mean, I've had my stories that were being taught in universities where the teacher who was teaching them has been fired from the job because they taught one of my stories and it had language in it. And the moral majority, which scares the daylights out of me, they do a big number on language. They always think they're going to get you on language when they, in fact, put up with the real obscenities, which are business ethics, floating ethics. Let's do who we can as fast as we can. The censoring of other people. Let's keep everybody's opinions nice and leavened. Those are the true and genuine obscenities. Language is just language. I mean, words are my business. I mean, that's how this is my 25th year writing. And I've used a lot of different kinds of language. And when I do a college lecture, invariably there'll be somebody who will get up in the audience, and make the sign of the cross, like I'm the omen or something if I say a terrible word. You're giggling.
No, I could just imagine somebody standing up in front of you.
That happened.
The cross.
No, let me tell you where it happened. I always get it wrong. I always say it was Dayton, and it wasn't Dayton. It was Wittenberg, Ohio, and I was giving a lecture, and they got me on religion. I didn't ask them to. They did it. They got me on it, and I started on it, and all of a sudden, up in the balcony, leaped up a young woman with big, fizzy natural, and she screamed, "You're the Antichrist. You're doing the devil's work," and she flicked her bick and set fire to her hair. Set fire to her hair, and all her friends are beating at her head, and she ran out, and them chasing her, and I said, wow, that was terrific. I mean, how do you follow that?
You don't, but do you ever wonder what goes through their minds when people do things like that? What are people afraid of? And you write about fear in the what do you call that? The preface or the author's notes, the introduction to your book. You write about the great fears that people have. We're afraid of nuclear war. We're afraid of cancer. We're afraid of death. We're afraid of dying by mercury poisoning.
We're afraid of all the minorities that are going to come and hit us over the head and take our wallet.
Yeah, and to us, fear is something that is always negative. It is never used in a positive way to continue our survival. Yet why do we have these great fears?
Well, because we're taught to be afraid very early on. And the things that we are taught to be afraid of, and when I say taught, I mean in a very inarticulate way. Mommy and Daddy make you afraid, the teachers make you afraid, the minister makes you afraid of all sorts of strange things, not the least of which, and these are the real mortal dreads, not looking good, of being rejected, I don't want to love anyone because if they die or then I'm going to be without again. Those are the real core fears that we suffer through, and they make us cowards. They make us put up with terrible things. Last night I came in at the airport last night. I mean, this is really minuscule.
Can it wait for a couple minutes since it's so minute?
You're going to sell something.
No, I'm not, but they are.
They are.
We will be right back with Harlan Ellison after these announcements, so please stay with us. Back with Harlan Ellison. You were landing at the airport last night.
Oh, yeah, I came in, and the luggage was coming off the little...
Carousel.
Yeah, it's a snake kind of thing going around. And there were 9,000 people, everybody standing 6 deep, and the bags came out, they bump against each other, and somebody's bag would fall off into the middle where it lays there. Lies there? Lies there.
Rests.
And, yes, it is there. And I couldn't get to it readily, but I watched because there were people that were very close, and they could have just reached over and grabbed it and stuff. Not one person would move a muscle. I got so annoyed, I got up and I jumped over both of the moving slidewalks, and everybody kind of watching as if I'd fallen off the moon. And I stood it up, and figuring maybe if you set a good example, happen again, nobody moved. Again, I got up and did it again. And I did that for about 25 minutes because my bags were sent on to New Brunswick, Canada.
Yes.
That's what happened to me. And I thought to myself, these are exactly the kind of people who would stand there and turn their back while someone was being knifed. Absolutely. Because if you won't extend yourself to pick up a bloody bag, which doesn't cost you anything, what's it going to cost you to assert yourself and demonstrate a little physical courage in the face of maybe getting hurt? And that's a kind of fear that I think is the most crippling.
Har, if you and I were walking across town tonight and we saw somebody getting stabbed across the street on a very dark street, sans police officers or any kind of help, would we get involved? I don't know if I would. Would you?
Yeah,
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm that kind of a nut. That's exactly what I do. Also, a lot of my life...
Have you ever?
Yeah, many times. A lot of my life has been violent. I tell you, you don't believe it? Well, ladies, I don't believe it. Well, come over here, sucker, and I'll show you. No. I'll tell you my most recent one, and I'm not proud of this, but it's what happens to me in the face of violence, because I had a lot of that when I was a kid, and my response is instant and immediate. I was in L.A., and I was driving down Doheny to go to a screening, and behind me was a Jeep, very expensive Jeep with a roll bar, and a couple of really good-looking California blonde guys and a very pretty young woman. And they pulled up behind me at the light, and I happened to look in the rearview mirror, and the young woman flipped a cigarette onto the trunk of my car. Mm-hmm. Now, I drive a 67 Camaro. I mean, it hasn't been washed since 1970, But even so, I didn't like that.
No, it's your car.
Right. So I got out.
You don't have that bumper sticker on the back that says, "You touch my car, I smash your face." You don't have that. Yeah.
No, I am not into that kind of thing at all. I'm a passive sort until riled, like a rattlesnake. And I got out, and their car was about that far from behind me, and I held up the cigarette for a moment, and I dropped it, and I said, "You didn't mean to do that, did you?" And it was open top. And the guys looked at me, and they gave me a Barbarino. What? And I said, "You didn't mean to do that." And I put two nice depressions in the hood of the Jeep. And so now these guys start to come out of the Jeep. And so I calmly walk to my car, get in, leave them sitting at the light, and I go on through. Now, they go through the red light, right? I have offended their machismo.
Well, you've also dented their hoodismo, huh? Yeah.
Absolutely fair. I believe in revenge. They come after me. As we approach Wilshire Boulevard, they try to cross me on the left in the opposite lane, so one lane on either side, and try to run me off the road. I just sail gently to the left because I got an old car. What do I care, right?
Exactly.
I run them off the road and up into a gas station. They go off the other side and come across Wilshire, across 4 lanes of traffic, and they come after me all the way down Doheny. Mm-hmm. So by this time, I'm thinking, we got a good thing going here. So I go past the Writers Guild Theater, which is where I was going to the screening, and they come up on the right-hand side, and the first thing the guy yells, which is the first thing that his little pea-sized brain could contain, was, "Hey, faggot, come on out here, faggot, faggot." And I thought, don't hit me. Don't hit me. So now he reaches into my window. Which is open on the right side. It was a nice pleasant day. He reaches in, and I go through the light, and he comes after me again. Now when we get to the next light, I know it's going to happen again, and this time I am ready for him. When he reaches in to grab me, I grab his hand, and I roll up the window, and I deck it and go right through the light, dragging him out of the Jeep. And I pulled him about a half a block. I didn't go that fast. I was going about 20, I guess. That's all. I wouldn't have heard it. And
just enough to kind of rough him up a little bit. Yeah.
Just to get his attention. Yeah. You've got to get his attention. And then I unrolled the window and dropped him, and I went. And that was that. Now, my feeling about this kind of thing is that it was not good, but it's an improvement. It's an improvement. Years ago, I'd got out and duked it out in the street. So this time, I was sensitive and I was mature about it.
Over dropping a cigarette on the back of your 1967 Chevy, which hasn't been washed since 1970.
That's right.
You did this to this poor man.
No, I think it's the implication of what Scott Fitzgerald called the careless people. Those who walk through...
You mean if the guy would have said, "Hey, excuse me,
Absolutely.
I did..." Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Anyways, if they said, "Oh, gee, I didn't mean to." I mean, like when I make a wrong turn in the car, I'm so chagrined and I'm so embarrassed, I pull over and say, "I'm sorry."
Or if you're turning left and there are people waiting behind you to turn, and I feel, I wish I wouldn't make these people wait, but I got to turn left here.
It's a matter of trying to live in the world with other people and being a little careful. I mean, I won't drop a paper bag on the street. Today in New York, I had a paper bag, and I had to walk, all over looking for a place to put it, and there was a guy with a Sabret hot dog stand, and I said, "Can I drop it in your bag?" And he looked at me like I was weird, that I wanted to drop it in the garbage can, and he said, "Yeah," so I did. No, if there had been any kind of amelioration, but immediately they come on with you. They start getting, nasty. So, anyhow, how's you doing? How's your life?
My life is just fine. People can drop cigarettes on my hood anytime they
want.
You
never go out, man. You never go out.
No, I don't. I rarely go out. I don't like going out. I like staying at home. I'm afraid to go out.
Well?
No, because I have to do this now. Huh? Do I have to do it right this second? If you go out and, you and I are recognizable, and then people want an autograph and 3 people start to run at you, I get very nervous when 3 people are running at me because you think they want an autograph, but sometimes they might want to take something else with them.
Well, people who don't get that think, well, if you didn't want that, you wouldn't be famous. Well, who knew? Who knew? All my life I said, gee, it would be terrific to be famous, golly, that would be nifty. Then I got it a little bit. I mean, I'm not, your face is known everywhere. I'm a writer. They don't know me that well, but occasionally I'm on here and someone will come over. But when it happens, it's very disturbing, particularly when they come at you when you're eating dinner. And you're sitting in a restaurant and some jlubbo comes up to you and says, hey, who are you? Right. And here, sign this for, I never read your stuff, but my kid is weird and she reads your stuff and,
Today I was coming back from lunch with a friend of mine who works in the press department here, and there was a nice young woman on the corner and she had a camera. She said, could I take your picture for my girlfriend? I said, certainly. So she got out the, Instamatic and got it all wound up, and she said to my friend, she said, could you take the picture so I could be in the picture? I said, I thought this was your friend. She said, well, it is, like that. I kind of like that, but when you see 3 people run at you who are large with neck sizes like that, I get nervous. We'll be right back after these announcements with more of Harlan Ellison. Back with Harlan Ellison in just a second, but may I remind you that tomorrow night here we have singer and songwriter John Denver, who will discuss the ups and downs that he's been experiencing. I'll tell you, for John Denver, it's been rough. Poor guy. We'll be right back after this for the NBC television stations, coast to coast. I must be almost broke for her. Oh. Back on the road there, we were talking about Ronald Reagan, and you were talking about how he, in your view, wrecked the educational system in California. But then you went on to say, on the other hand, I interrupted you. I want to now go back to the other hand.
I have these very...
I'm starting to tidy it up now because we're heading for the runway. And, just in case we crash, I want everything compartmentalized nicely.
Well, it is historically so that we go to war under Democratic presidents, and we have periods of, high finance and good economics during Republican presidents. So... I voted for Carter, and I was as disappointed in him as everybody else was. So to clean up after Carter, Reagan will clean it up. You're all going to get fat. You're all going to get fat. Unfortunately, a lot of that is not going to filter down to the people who are hurting worst. And
the question is, Harlan, and I voted for the liberals for 20 years. I voted for Ronald Reagan this time out.
Did you?
Yes, I did. I voted for John.
Don't touch me.
Oh, come on, it doesn't hurt. I voted for Kennedy and for Johnson and for Humphrey, and I was one of those who voted for McGovern, and I voted for Carter. And I asked myself, all the causes in which I believe deeply and have over the years, in which we talk about things filtering down to those who really need it, it hasn't filtered down in the past 20 years.
Never has, never will. The people on the bottom know that. Why do you think they're out cautioning you in the head in the street? They know the truth. They're just not going to get down there. And that's the flat of it. And I don't make any brief for that one way or the other. It's just that I personally know Mr. Reagan from what went down with me. I mean, I was on his subversive list for at least 4 years because I was writing for the LA Free Press, and everybody was who was on the Free Press. And my phone was, every time I say that, people say, oh, sure, kid. My phone was tapped. The only reason I know it was tapped is I caught him doing it, which is really 2 of the most inept wiretappers I've ever seen.
You know something? Yeah, they aren't very good at that.
Oh, they were terrible. There were buzzes on the line. You could hear their voices. It was stupid.
Yeah. But if they were out to silence you, you would have been silenced a long time ago.
Absolutely.
What you're saying tonight is not staying here in the building. It's going out to hundreds, nay, thousands of homes
I just want
tonight.
Mr. Reagan to know that I am watching you. I'm watching you,
and
Ron.
So are the rest of us. Yeah. And you got 4 years, and if you muck it up, pal, you're going the way of Carter. No more do you get in for 8 years just because you were a great guy the first 4 years around. So
that's a good thing to say. A lot, a lot. Just send a card to Ronald Reagan. I'm watching.
Yep. Yep. Remember what you said. Yeah. Don't let us down. I was thinking today, coming across town, about the earthquake in Italy, which was a terrible thing, and how now here in New York, for example, the outpouring from the Italian community here in New York and from all areas of our city to send food, to send blankets, to send money, to send help to those people who were really hurt in that earthquake. Then I thought about the people in San Bernardino who were burned out last week. What are they getting? What are we sending to our own? Why are we always so quick to help the needy overseas, which is very proper and wonderful, and which I don't decry for a second, but we never really think about helping our own?
It's not dramatic enough. It's not dramatic enough. See, it's an Irwin Allen movie in Italy, and we can see all those, those poor, pathetic peasants, and they're suffering, and everybody buried, and it gets really good media hype. San Bernardino is a lot of people who are upper middle class, and they don't look pathetic. They're wandering around in their Adidas sweatshirts, cleaning out the pool and all. I can't get really upset about that. We pick our shots in a very strange way.
But do people who have a swimming pool that's been burned out hurt any less than people who don't have a swimming pool and have been burned out? Do we gauge compassion on how much money somebody has? We do, but should we is the question.
That's the human animal. It's the human animal. There's no way to get away from that. We're a very strange species. I was at the Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena watching the Saturn flyby. It was one of the most astonishing things I've ever been. I really felt awestruck, staggering around there in the company of, Clyde Tombaugh, the discoverer of Pluto, for God's sakes. And I got out and I'm listening to why did you break your cigarette?
It's my new habit. When I don't want to smoke, I break them in half. I waste.
You're getting weirder. You really are.
I'm getting
You really are. And I went out to go home that night. After they've discovered things that defy celestial mechanics. They've got things that cannot possibly be. They just can't, but there they are. And the news.
Oh, the rings where they said,
the rings are braided.
Possibly be.
It can't be, and there they are. It's got everybody stymied. In fact, at NASA, usually if they take an hour or two or a day at most, they can figure out a logical explanation. But the braiding, they don't know where to even start. And the spokes that radiate out.
All right, so now tell the braiding. That's where the rings are all different kinds of geometric.
No, there's three in the I think it's the F ring. All right, folks. You see, out there's a big thing called Saturn, and it's got these rings going around it, and the rings are kept.
You don't have to play to the camera. You can talk.
I don't know how to explain it. I can't even explain it. They've got there's an involved gravitic celestial mechanics that keeps those rings going around, okay? And they should, by all rights, be separated and keep going around or fly apart. We're not quite sure how they stay in shape. But they not only go around, there are three rings in the large F ring that braid around each other, which is physically impossible. It cannot be. It's as if I were to drop this mug and it went up without any assistance. And that's what's got them stymied. And I come out of JPL and I'm driving back to LA for the night, and the news was about who shot JR.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, this is insanity. That we live in a time of such staged crises, and when something really happens, no one pays attention.
Alan King said it here. The whole country worried about who shot JR. Who gives a damn about who shot Vernon Jordan?
Yeah.
Huh? This is from Alan King. Not from me, from Alan King. Now, you know how those rings, they put Perrier water on those, and it does a magic. I know, commercial. We'll be right back after these announcements. Stay with us.
You've always been a triumph.
The commercial break, one of our friends here said, how old are you?
And I said, 46.
Do you feel old at 46?
No.
Remember when you were 25 and thought about 46? You thought, oh, my God, that's ancient.
I never thought I'd live past 14.
Why?
Like I said, I had a not terrific childhood, and ran off when I was 13. And I figured, and if I make it to 14, I'm gonna be lucky. And every day that I get, that I'm able to get up, I figured is golden time. So I'm looking forward. I live with a beautiful lady who is younger than I, and it disturbs me. Jane is a wonderful, wonderful woman, but I have sports jackets older than she is. And she thought I was kidding until I showed her one that I had, and she said, my God, it is.
Was she in the car with you when the cigarette went on the hood?
No.
Does she think you're weird?
I don't know what Jane thinks about that. Jane likes living with me. I'm not sure her parents are terribly happy about it, but she seems to like it in California. She likes it in my house. My house is a lot of fun. There's a lot of people in and out, and there's 37,000 books in the house, and a lot of good music, and a lot of art, and it's a terrific place to be.
Probably come by, have a couple of Perriers, read a few books, and...
She likes Perrier. She won't drink anything else.
Really?
Yeah.
Poor thing.
She's a nice American lady.
All right. Somebody else here in our house tonight. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, it's me.
Hi. Yes, it is.
I'd like a confirmation from you to the fact that I believe that the college education in California has been running not only very well, but to the extent that the average American family can send your child to a good school, and I believe that like UCLA costs $1,200 per year as a resident of California, you can send your child to college for about $1,200, and I think that says a lot for Reagan.
It says that when Reagan came in, there was no tuition being charged residents, and it's now $1,200. That can be said. What also can be said is that the stat reading scores in the state of California are among the lowest in the nation now. We have a state filled with illiterates. So you don't get a confirmation.
Yeah, but do you blame that on Ronald Reagan, or do you blame it on the kinds of people who can't just buy an ordinary Jeep but have to have roll bars and plush seats in it and go around throwing cigarette butts on people's hoods?
I don't know who to blame it on. I mean, I'm sure it's not. I mean, Ronald Reagan didn't single-handedly step out there and...
Harlan, let's face it, growing up in California is not the most ideal thing for most young people, especially in the Los Angeles area where there's a lot of opulence and a lot of luxury and a lot of loose money running around.
Not everybody lives in Beverly Hills.
No, not everybody
lives in Park Avenue in New York. There's an awful lot of people who live in the Bronx, you know. And that's the same. And that's the same for Los Angeles. There are an awful lot of people who live in bedroom communities out in the valley, who live in small towns throughout the state. And in Los Angeles, we have our versions of the ghetto too. They happen to be better laundered, and they happen to be better tailored. You don't see burned out, gutted buildings as much. But it's the same wash right across the plain. What I'm saying to you is that the education in California is not what it was before. And it began, as far as I can tell, because I went there 17, 18 years ago, and that was one of the things that I took greatest pride in that state, that we had an educational system that was second to none. We were number one in the nation, and it isn't now. And it began with Ronald Reagan's administration.
Gee, that's funny, because I moved there 16 years ago, or 17 years ago, 1963 for the first time. I remember a woman telling me, I moved there from Georgia in the 60s, and in Georgia in the 60s, there was a lot of racial tension back and forth between blacks and whites.
I think you could say that, yeah.
And I moved to California expecting a land of peace. And I went to rent an apartment, and a lady said to me, she said, you know, you better live north of Sunset and west of La Brea, otherwise you're going to have to live with the niggers. Now, this was in California. It blew my mind. I said, good heavens, I just moved here from Georgia to get away from that kind of
Why should it blow your mind?
Well, because I'd been led to believe that California was so progressive, so wonderful, so liberal.
Pucky.
Yeah, you aren't kidding. And then she says to me, and by the way, do you have children? I said, no, I don't. She said, well, that's good because the educational system out here stinks. Now, this is in 1963. This is what I heard.
Well,
we all hear different things.
You know, people are exactly the same. They had school riots in Boston. And in California, everybody was, forever jerking their knee and saying how terrible things were in Alabama and Georgia and the Carolinas. It was terrible, terrible, terrible. Now they're busting kids to get racial, balance. Boy, we had an item on the news. It was wonderful. They had a school where they had all the kids' names in a basket. And they had to pick some to go and some to stay. Mm-hmm. And all the parents came in, and one guy got up, typical, your daddy of the year, straight out of a Norman Rockwell painting. And he got up, and his language, what makes mine look like olive oil, man. And he got up and he took the basket and he threw it across the room, and everybody cheered him. And I said to myself, there they are. There they are. The Visigoths are still with us. People are all the same underneath. Everybody, we are all in the same skin. Everybody, the most sanctimonious of us all. I want you to know that the most sanctimonious are the biggest sinners. Absolutely. Because they're the ones who smell it, and they're afraid someone's going to find out, so they point the finger first.
What does that mean, we're all in the same skin?
It means that whatever you feel, whatever you fear, whatever you're afraid of somebody finding out about, what you would not want the cops to come into your house and go into the bottom of your bedroom drawer and pull out what you got under the socks there, whatever it is, we all got it. We all have that same thing. Can I give you this is a beaut. The title story of the book, Saturday, I wrote in a hotel here.
Just a second now. Now, before this, Jimmy, do we have to do this? Okay. I see you looking over there. They do this with commercial. You don't see it.
I'll leave the thumb right there.
No, that's it. Tell me. All right, go ahead. Excuse me.
Okay, I wrote it.
We fly by wire here. I don't know. They're going crazy with people waiting back there. And
those are very nice people in there.
I know they are, and I refuse to let you go just yet.
All right, as long as Steve Shagan knows I didn't do it.
Hey, Steve Shagan knows that.
Okay. I was writing this story.
I went to his movie last night.
Moving right along as fast as possible. I was sitting writing the story.
So I know what waiting around is. Forgive me, Steve. I'm just kidding. Yes, Harlan.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Saturday.
Oh, yes.
A beaut.
I was sitting in a hotel room writing it because I had to give a reading uptown. and I was writing it very, very fast. So I wasn't reading what I was writing, which happens sometimes. I just kind of, as you say, fly on the wire. I went. When I went uptown to read the story, I read it, and there was a section in it where the guy is talking about his mother. And in it, he says, I wish she would finally die. The woman has been sick. And I realized I was talking about my own mother. My mother had been ill, and she never really cared much about living after my father died, and she spent 25 years just a shadow walking around and being Doc Ellison's widow. That was her role in life. And when I read that, I felt the most unbelievable horror at myself for having even thought it and admitting it. Last year, I was doing some work for the ERA in the best place of all to do it, Salt Lake City, right? And I'm on the radio, and I was, talk about people we're not allowed to talk about because they want equal time. Anyhow, and I said this to the interviewer. I was talking about this story, and I said this. I said I wanted my mother to go, finally. It was partly selfish that I couldn't. We had reversed roles. I'd become the parent and she the child, which happens to a lot of people. And it was always the back of it. She was a nice woman, a good woman. I had nothing, there was no meanness in me. I just wanted to be free of that. And when I said that... And you wanted her to be free of shuffling around. Yeah, but mostly me. I can't cop to it on noble grounds that I wanted to release. I wanted to be loose of it, man. That was the truth. And that was, I copped to that. And I said it over the radio. And the guy who was interviewing me looked at me the way you would look at a leper. He was really horrified. And then the phone calls started coming in, and a woman got on the line, and she started to cry. And she said, thank you for saying that. She said, because I have felt that for years. And she said, I felt like a monster. And I said, you are not alone. We all share it. And everybody's afraid to say these things. It may not be the nicest thing in the world to say, but we are all in the same skin. We all suffer those mortal dreads. And in the stories, that's, as you were saying, when you said about Jeffy, we are all those people. And that's what I write about, is the stuff we won't cop to, the stuff we won't admit. Hello? Now I'd like to go into Jeffy, but I can't do that because I don't want to keep those people waiting. Yeah, they should come back. But you got to come back sometime, and we'll talk about Jeffy, because in spite of your story, he lives. I hope so. He does. Thank you, my friend. Thank you, Tom. All right. Don't stay away too long. All right. Don't. We will continue right after these announcements from our sponsors and the NBC television station. Thank you very much.